Well, I think I started my bell a little too soon. The music is not working, so there's 2 strikes out of 3. One more strike, and I think I'll cancel this program. Welcome to Mary's School of Prophecy. And this is another decode of Dana Coverstone's most recent dream. And I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the Third Eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. And before we start, since I usually give people time to check in, and obviously my program is not going according to plan exactly today, I think I will give people my address now. And I will do that now and start the dream decode in just another minute or so. This is my address for those of you who are new to the program. William Tapley, Post Office Box 291, Osage, Iowa 50461. Contact me anytime. And I think I will mention, as long as I'm here and I'm getting the housekeeping out of the way, I will mention my books. You can order my books on my website, thirdeaglemedia.com. I think there's a link below. Click on the newsletter tab. Under the newsletter tab, there is a July newsletter. The second page of the July newsletter is an order form. And you can order the books via PayPal. Just click on the donate button. And if you want to see what the books are all about before you order them, no problem. They are printed in their entirety under the transcript tab, all 4 volumes. Okay, so there, I feel pretty good. I got all my housekeeping out of the way. That always feels good. And look at that. It's only 2 minutes after the program is supposed to start, and we only have 22 people. I am not going to wait. I am not going to wait for people who are late. If you're late to class, I rang the bell. That's just like the bell in the hallway in school. The students should have been in class by now. So I am going to start the decode because it is a very fascinating dream. And I have a pretty good record decoding Dana Coverstone's dream. And I take a special pride in the decode of the data dream. In fact, Dana Coverstone, in his program about this newest dream, he mentioned the data dream. And not that he or Sherry Goff got it right, but the data dream was about Biden. Remember, he was in the coffin, except as I told you at the time, Biden was not in the coffin. Biden was the coffin. In other words, the corruption was inside Biden. And I told you that the people with their bare feet in the rotunda, that signified obeisance to Biden, which indicated that he would be president, which not anybody else got that from the data dream, but that's what it was all about. And then one senator was very upset. He ran over to the White House because evidently Trump was not going to do anything about it, and that came true also. So now this program, this dream, if I'm right about this one, this will be stunning. In a way, I hope I'm not right. Okay, so when he published this dream, he calls it the 2022 Jets dream. Not stream, dream. Jets dream. And I looked up the number of jets that America has, and I said, do you suppose we have 2022 jets? And all of the jets total in the U.S. military is less than 2022. So that was I can't include that as part of the interpretation of this dream. Now, he published this dream just a couple days ago on Friday the 21st. So let me show you the first slide, which is his commentary before the dream, but it's really very interesting. The 2022 jet stream, and this is Dana speaking now. Between January 7th and January 19th, every single night, I had the same dream until this past Tuesday night. That would be January 18th, when I had the rest of it. And that would be 13 different nights. Can you imagine having the same dream 13 different nights in a row? And he mentioned every single night, 3 times he said that. That's quite often. And of course, it's typical of apocalyptic prophecy to have repetition like that. And Dana Coverstone does repeat certain phrases like that more than once. It's like the angels in heaven saying, holy, holy, holy. And it's for repetition. Whenever you repeat something 3 times, that's a divine approval, so to speak. It gives a divine emphasis. And I think this is extremely important. And what would the number 13 represent in the Bible? Does anyone know? If this were a class, I would ask for a show of hands. The number 13 appears in one book of the Bible more than any other book, and that is the book of Esther. So does the 13 dreams that he has it refer to the book of Esther? I suggest it does. Now, what happened on the 13th of Adar in the book of Esther? That was the time that Haman chose or was given by lots to kill all the Jews. So I'm wondering, does this dream have a significance for the nation of Israel? And I think it does. Let's continue now with the first slide that I have prepared. Now, this is the actual part of the dream now. The dream began with me sitting in front of my desk. So right across from where I am looking at one of the windows that you can see behind me, and where you see the picture frames I was looking at, there was a calendar hanging there, and it said 2022, big thick letters. No doubt I knew what it was. It was 2022. It was a very simple calendar, no pictures, just a bold outline of the dates and the months. So that's pretty obvious, isn't it? I think Dana got a little verbose in this particular dream. He could have repeated all that in just one sentence. But anyway, it's Dana's, he's the prophet, so I don't question it. So the first slide that I showed you, the first part of the dream, is obvious that the events that he's going to talk about will occur in 2022. The question is, am I right in my interpretation of the events that Dana is writing about? So let's look at the second slide I have prepared. Looking out the window, sitting in this chair, and I was watching a podcast on my computer. My desk was gone where I'm sitting at. Right behind me at the hutch, I had on my computer my MacBook Pro, and I was watching a podcast on it from the chair across from me. So I could see outside, clear, sunny skies outside, no problem at all, no issues, no great clouds, no storms, nothing. And I saw the calendar on January, and it flipped up. Now, this is the first calendar dream that I've had in a while. So that definitely caught my attention in the dream. It went January, February, both clear. Both flips of the calendar from January to February, both were clear, sunny skies, representing those 2 months. So it looks to me like January and February. I am sure that those clear, sunny skies symbolize peaceful times for the United States. I hope we have more than just 2 months of peace in 2022. I got to thinking maybe those of you who are members of our WFRN Rosary Network, maybe we ought to have our pilgrimage in January or February. Okay, let's move on to slide number 3 in Dana's dream sequence. Then it flipped up to March, and then the skies turned very gray. Not dark, not black, just gray. It just went from white to gray. And I heard the distinct sounds of F-16s flying by the window. I heard 3 of them. And I lived in Terre Haute for about 10 years, about 9 years actually. And we lived close to the airport. And there was an Air Force runway over there. And those F-16s would take off a couple times a day and go over our house. And so I know that sound distinctly. It's the sound of freedom. It's a great sound. But I would hear those F-16s go flying by. I heard 3 of them go by in March. I could not see anything outside except the gray, overcast sky. No action, no excitement, nothing. Just heard those 3 F-16s go flying by. So the first significant problems in 2022, according to Dana's dream, will occur in March. But it's not going to be evidently really bad occurrences because the sky is only gray. It's not black. There's no excitement. However, F-16s are military jets. They're called fighter planes. So I'm wondering if maybe there won't be any war as far as the United States goes, but could there be war someplace else in the world? And I mentioned March, the number 13, as maybe referring to Israel. Would there be war in Israel? It's interesting that in the month of March this year, Purim occurs on March 16th and 17th. I'm sure you know what Purim is. That's when the Jews celebrate their victory over Haman. I mean, this was over 2,000 years ago. The Jews are still celebrating that victory, and I don't blame them. But wouldn't the New World Order love to defeat Israel on the Feast of Purim? I mean, this is when they celebrate their victory. March 16th and 17th. Is that what Dana's dream is pointing to? Now, why would the New World Order definitely opposes Israel anyway. They don't want, like any religion, and as Benjamin Netanyahu always used to say, Israel is the one and only Jewish state. And the New World Order does not want to hear of any religious state, especially a Jewish state. And I think there's a couple of reasons that they would like to also start a war, not only to defeat Israel, but to distract from Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is going to start his new social media on President's Day in February. At least that's the latest date given. That would be February the 21st. So is Dana's dream, is this March, is that the New World Order? Will they start some kind of a problem in the Middle East, especially in Israel, to detract from Donald Trump? Because he's going to wipe out Twitter and Facebook, you know that. And I want to show you something else that's, I think, very serious as far as Israel goes. And I've shown you this before. This is the Mount Meron crowd crush that occurred on April the 30th of this year, which was a fulfillment of Jeremiah 23:12. Let me just show you that slide. That's very interesting. Jeremiah 23:12. Therefore their way shall be as a slippery way in the dark, for they shall be driven on and fall therein. For I will bring evils upon them the year of their visitation, saith the Lord. So all those characteristics, the way, the slippery way, being driven on, it was a stampede, falling, being a slippery, all those were characteristics were fulfilled in that Mount Meron crowd rush. A perfect fulfillment of Jeremiah 23:12. But the most scary part is the year of their visitation. That's when evils will be brought up, that God will bring evils upon Israel. That year, the year that Mount Meron crowd rush occurred. Well, it occurred April 30th. So March would be about the last month that it would occur and still be in the year of their visitation. So now does that point to the Daniel 9 war? I want to show you the Daniel 9 slide, because if Dana is prophesying about a war in Israel in March, this would be the war. Daniel 9, 26 and 27. You have to read this according to the alphabet there. And he shall confirm the covenant with many in 1 week. That has already occurred. That refers to, it could be that he could be either Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu. In either event, it's the anointed one, and that has been achieved through the Abrahamic Accords. And look at B, after 62 weeks, the anointed one shall be cut off. That has already occurred to both Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. And read C. And the people of the prince who shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And in the midst of the week he shall destroy the sacrifice and the oblation. He will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. Sorry for messing up my words here. I get excited. I don't know why I get excited about it, but as far as I can see, Dana's dream, this is what Dana's dream is pointing to. And I can see the United States not getting involved. Biden doesn't want to get involved with Israel. They don't want to certainly support Israel. Being one of the sons of Haman himself, he's all in favor of destroying Israel. So I can see where just the grace guy for the United States would, as far as the United States goes, would indicate a war somewhere else, specifically in Israel. I think that's what this prophecy is about. Okay, but we've just started. We're only up to March. Let's see what's next in Dana's dream. So here's the next slide. Then a focus went back on the months. April, May, June, July, August, passed up. Sun shining during all those months. Nothing of concern outside. Now the podcast I'm watching, I don't even know what I was watching. I just know I was sitting at the desk listening to something, and my attention got drawn to the calendar and the window specifically. And the window is about 15 feet high. There's 2 windows, so I can look out of the window and look pretty high up in the sky and get a clear picture outside that window. So we do have some numerology here. 15, of course, is a rosary number. The window is 15 feet high. 15 is the number in Bible prophecy, which is broken down into 3 5s, 5 5 5. It defeats 6 6 6. Our Lord shows us that in the Olivet Discourse. It seems to be in Dana's dream that once March is over, at least as far as the United States goes, April through August is clear sailing, sunny skies. I'm sure that indicates peace in America, as far as we're concerned. Maybe we can have that pilgrimage after all. Now let's just see what happens next. So we're up to September. September is not so great in Dana's dream. Let me see where we are. I want to get the right slide here. But the calendar slowly, and I do mean slowly, just slowly kind of flipped to September. And as it did, the paper seemed like it was a green leaf turning brown, like leaves do in the fall. So as the paper flipped up, it was green. And as it finally hit the wall and went flat against the wall, and I could see September 2022, it began to turn brown, like the leaf was fading. When it finally stopped moving, on that calendar, the sky outside that window became pitch black. I could hear wind, I could hear random noises, and then I heard jets. And a group of 3 F-16s flew by the window, headed north. Okay, so now things are obviously much more obvious, much more serious for the United States. The blackness indicates that things are very much more ominous than they were. The jets are headed north. In all of these images of the jets which Dana has, there are 3 jets. And of course, as I said, the 3 indicates a divine significance, but it also signifies a missing man formation. In fact, I chose for the thumbnail on here just the beginning of a missing man formation with F-16 jets. That's the significance of that thumbnail. I didn't have room to show the whole missing man. But the one jet is just beginning to turn up and away from the group. So when you see at an air show, you see 4 jets, and very often the F-16s and other jets, they go in formations of 4, and then one leaves the formation. That's called a missing man formation. It indicates that someone of the group has recently died, maybe in action or maybe an accident. And Dana always sees 3 jets. So it could be, and maybe it has both significances. Maybe it signifies a divine significance, or it could be a missing man formation. It may mean disaster. Maybe that's what the 3 jets symbolize. Now, he says that the 3 jets are headed north. Now, if this is apocalyptic literature, and I think it is, it wouldn't necessarily mean north of the United States, or let's say war with Canada. I don't think that's what it indicates. In the Bible, all compass points are taken from Jerusalem. So if the jets head north, it would mean north of Jerusalem. So does that mean that the United States has been sucked into the Daniel 9 war in September? That may be what it means. Or it could be that United States is at a war with Russia, because Russia Moscow is due north of Jerusalem. Anyway, I believe that is the significance of the 3 jets going north. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Now, I know where I sit in my office. I know the direction of things. So I know where they were going. They were headed north. There were 3 of them. They all went flying north, all 3 in formation. And right in my window of view, they paused, almost like they just stopped for a second. And I could see that these 3 F-16s were wingtip to wingtip. They had flashing red and yellow lights on top and bottom. After the pause, they rocketed by at a great speed and were soon out of sight and not heard again. And they were moving like they were on a mission. And it reminded me of seeing some of the jets over New York on 9/11. They had a place to go, and they had to get there fast. So I'm sure that this indicates a military operation somewhere. I don't think in the United States. I suspect either near Russia or in the Middle East. I'm not sure what the flashing red and yellow lights signify. I think the Israeli flag is blue and white. Of course, the American flag is red, white, and blue. The Russian flag might be red and yellow. I think it is. And that may be what that symbolizes. Dana said they act as though they had a place to go. And as I say, I suspect that's somewhere north of Israel. Of course, on a globe, if you look at the latitude, I mean, there are many parts of the globe that are north of the latitude that Israel is located on. So it would not have to be in the Middle East. But that's just a possibility that I'm throwing out there. Okay, let me look at the next slide. Next part of the dream. So those 3 jets go flying north. And then after that pause, there was suddenly another 3 jets that came by. And they stopped in front of the window. I saw they were all in the same formation. 1, 2, 3, wingtip to wingtip. They all had the red and yellow lights on top and the bottom of the jets when they went by. I could see the top of the F-16s, just 3 in a row, all going the same direction. These guys were headed south, and they were flying even faster than the other 2. And then they flew off just as fast as the first jets did. The ones heading north, but there was that pause. They stopped so I could see them real quick and took off again. And that sound of those F-16s going at high speed once again, I heard that sound almost every week in Terre Haute. So I know that sound. So now we have this formation of jets. Again, indicate some kind of military operation somewhere in the world. And this seems to be even more frenetic. These jets are going faster, but they're going south. Again, would that indicate south of Jerusalem? I'm not sure if there's any hot spots south of Jerusalem. It could somewhere in the Middle East. I'm not sure where that could be. Maybe in Africa somewhere. I'm not sure where the United States would be. And I could be wrong. It may just be, could be in the southern part of the United States, for all I know. Maybe South America. Anyway, that's a guess as far as I'm concerned. So let's continue with Dana's vision, or dream, I should say. At this point, I get up from my chair. I walk to the window, and I'm looking outside, and I immediately heard jets. I heard more jets coming, but I can't see them, and the sky is pitch black. I can't see anything else out there. Then another 3 jets appeared, like over me, kind of like this, and I'm seeing the backside of these 3 jets going away from me. I can see the afterburners on those engines. I can see the fire, I can see the flame, and now they just take off, and they're headed west as fast as they can. So whatever's happening now in September is much worse, I would say, than what's happening in March. And I'm not sure exactly where it is, but we're not going to hold our pilgrimage in September. That I guarantee. Okay, let's move on to the next part of Dana's dream. They came from the east. They dropped down in front of the church window, and they just take off flying crazily fast. I did not see any flashing lights on this one because they did pause right at the window, but all I could see was the exhaust and the flames coming off to move them. No flashing lights. And they just sped out. Maybe, my estimation was maybe a mile or two. And suddenly they just went straight up. I mean, straight up. And I got to see those 3 F-16s, just in formation. All 3 wingtip to wingtip, but no lights flashing. And they went straight up. And then I heard a sonic boom. 1 sonic boom, not 3. 1 sonic boom, and they were gone. I mean, they were gone. Let me see. I'm working my slides here. I want to make sure I get all the slides right. So now, this is, I would say, a serious development. Not straight up. That would not indicate Jerusalem, north, south, east, or west. Straight up, that can only indicate America. And the function of jets is to intercept bombers. Is that what Dana is seeing here? An attack on the United States. That's all I can think of, these F-16s going up. So now, let's look at the next. Oh, I've messed up my slides here. Just a minute. All right, here's the next slide. I pressed my face against the glass. I'm looking up. I'm looking around. I'm trying to see things. There's nothing outside but pitch black sky. 3 had gone north. 3 had gone south. And 3 had started west and then went straight up at great speed. And I was standing there looking out the window, very perplexed, when the man that I see in my dreams just kind of walked over right in front of the window, and I could see his face. It wasn't startling. It was just part of the dream. But he pointed up, and he said this, "Up is coming, and it is beginning. All that you have braced for is for now. Up is coming, and it is beginning, and all that you have braced for is for now. Stay braced and ready. Eyes on the prize, and be steady in your steps." So, as I say, this is obviously, I would say, quite worrisome. Dana repeats the phrase that the man in white says. He repeats it twice. There must be some big significance in the jets going up, as the man in white says. This is what all of Dana's dreams have been pointing to. And I can't see how it could be anything but some kind of an attack on the United States. I would say that's what the jets going up indicate. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So I had this dream, and I was up. I got out of bed. I was just wide awake, and typically I knew, once again, I had everything except the end parts. The last thing I saw since Tuesday, the 7th through the 19th, every single time that dream ended, it was those 3 jets flying straight and me against the windows. I think they should be straight up. So I knew the dream was over, and I wrote those words down. I was thinking about what was coming. So what does it all mean? So the dream part is over. And Dana had 13 nights with the same dream, and all ended up with those 3 jets flying up. So now, this is very interesting. This has never happened before with Dana's dreams. He now has a vision. So let's see how he describes that. I began to walk and pace in the living room, and as I was walking and pacing, about 2:15 a.m., I had a vision. I was stopped in my tracks, and I saw a vision. And in that vision, I was standing on the boundary of Ukraine and Russia. And many years ago, I spent some time in that area and in that region. I took some trains down through there. So that boundary is very clear to me. And I saw a large boiling pot right on that border. It didn't take up the whole border, but just right smack dab in the center of the border point between Russia and Ukraine. And I saw this huge boiling pot, which I'm going to call a cauldron. So I was thinking, what is the significance of the time? As you know, in apocalyptic prophecy, numerology, timestamps, all these things are very important. And they practically always mean something other than the obvious. You always give the symbolic interpretation first, then the literal. It doesn't mean that the literal is always wrong. It's just that you look at the symbolic first. So what does 2:15 indicate? Does that indicate a month? In other words, 2:15, February 15th. Now that was Burkesville time, remember. Dana had this dream or vision. His church is located in Burkesville, Kentucky. That would be the central time zone. That would mean that in the Ukraine, or on the border between Ukraine and Russia, they are 9 hours ahead of Burkesville, Kentucky. That would be 11:15 their time. Would that be significant? I believe that this vision does not take place either March or September. We already have been given those 2 months. I suspect that this is a different month. Either 2, which would be February, or 11, which would be November. So now let's look at... I got my numbering wrong here. Now I have it. And I saw soldiers on both sides of that cauldron. They were tossing up blocks and bricks and pieces of what looked like tree limbs in large black bags. And the different sides were not engaged with each other. There was no war going on. Nobody had guns or weapons or missiles or anything. They were just taking stuff and throwing it up in the pots from both sides. But then I began to notice that the pot was growing larger exponentially. Now it was about 50 feet high. And then I saw that going north and south off of that cauldron, off of that large pot, it seemed that walls began to move. And the walls began to shape and filter down. It was almost like one piece was here, and another piece was added, another piece, another piece, another piece, going both north and south. So once again, notice he repeats another piece 3 different times, so that's, I'm sure, significant. But notice this is the border between Ukraine and Russia, but there's no war, no guns, no missiles. Does this mean, if this occurs in November, does this mean that the September war, the Black Sky, has that been resolved? Or does this mean that this has not yet happened? Is this truce? Does this occur in February? Now, the 50-foot high is rosary imagery, as I'm sure all of you know. 50 is, that's the height of the scaffold in the book of Esther, for example, 50 cubits high. That indicates that Mary's rosary will be used to defeat Haman and the 10 sons of Haman, who represent the 10 kings of Haman. This is very similar to Dana's flaming spear dream. You remember that dream? There was a wall between the 2 candidates, between Trump and Biden. Now, that wall was 20 feet high, but that is also rosary imagery. You can find that in the parable of the when Peter catches the fish and the boat is 200 cubits from shore. That's also rosary imagery. So what this seems to indicate to me that, let me just see if I've got the right, oh yeah, I want to make sure I get this numerology. I'm going to mention it after the next slide. So if the wall does indicate Mary's rosary, as it does in the book of Esther, does that symbolize that Mary is going to bring about a truce or a peace treaty between Russia and Ukraine? And will that be February or November? All right, let's look at Dana's next slide here. And I saw that these walls were going to be the same height as that boiling pot. And then it was moving north. It blocked Ukraine. It went along the border of Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Estonia. It was like a wall going up that way, right along the boundaries of the border of Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, and Estonia, separating them from the Russian province, so to speak. The southern moving wall closed off the southern part of Ukraine, Russia, and also closed off Georgia all the way down to the sea. So now the wall is the same height as the boiling pot. That means 50 feet high, but it is getting larger, as we'll see in the next slide, the next part of the dream. The wall stopped at the top and the bottom, and it became taller. It seemed like it was about 100 feet high, but it was separating the nations from Russia, with Georgia being the exception. The wall just went down in front to the east of Georgia and blocked it off. And I was seeing this like it was a map. And then I watched that wall get blue cold, and it appeared as if it was suddenly electrified with a digital signal. Well, as we know, the symbolic imagery comes first, and blue is Mary's color. Is that a verification that that this wall does represent Mary? 100 feet could represent multiple rosaries. Or the wall getting blue cold, could that indicate the Cold War coming back? And I think Dana mentions that later on. Okay, let's look at the next slide. And then ice appeared all over the wall. It was a cold wall. And there was still a piece of pulse I could see, like a pulse of electricity, running through that wall, top to bottom, like electricity was running through it. But it was a wall, nonetheless, a very, very tall, large wall. It was cold as ice. It was ice covered and had like almost a digital signal. If you know, when you're watching someone's cardiac thing from their heart monitor and you see the ups and the downs and the beeps, it looked like one of those things going all along the outside wall. So that's kind of interesting. Now we've got a heart monitor running alongside the wall. And this does sound like a new Cold War. And it reminds me of the phrase that Winston Churchill coined, and that is an iron curtain. An iron curtain has descended in Europe. Remember that? I think he spoke that address at the United Nations. Okay, let's look at Dana's next part of the dream. And as I was looking at the wall facing Russia, looking at it from the west to the east, and that sentinel on the heart monitor went from Estonia to Georgia, it was all the way north to south from where that wall was now, and it started in the middle of Ukraine and Russia. And when the night came, you could see that pulse on the western side, because as it got darker, you could see that pulse brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. It was like a heart monitor. Well, I don't have to ask you, what is the significance of Dana Coverstone saying brighter 5 times? That's another indication that this wall does refer to Mary's rosary. And of course, 5, that's the same as the number of pebbles that David chose against Goliath. 5 smooth pebbles. I've got a rosary right here. 5 smooth pebbles. So when Dana says brighter 5 times, I don't think he realizes it. But he is giving us rosary imagery, as you in my WFRN audience, as I'm sure you understand. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. We're almost at the end. In fact, I think this is the last slide. There were also lights that were about 500 feet above those walls. So that wall was tall, and 500 feet above it were these huge, massive spotlights that shone down on the wall. And you could see on both sides of the wall very, very easily for probably about a half mile on either side. And there were fixed poles that covered the top of that wall with light. And they also revealed about 50 feet up, all along that wall, there were guard turrets. And there were two guards, each one facing a different way. One facing east, the other facing west, with their backs right up next to one another. And in my spirit, I heard the words that a new Cold War is upon us, and that cyber will be the new cipher. So that is the end of the vision and the end of the dreams. And that's pretty obviously rosary imagery there. The lights are 500 feet above the wall. The turrets are 50 feet. I'm not sure if they're 50 feet up outside the wall. And Dana Coverstone said brighter, which refers to the wall, 5 times. So what's that? 500 plus 50 plus 5 is 555. That's pretty obviously 555. And that is exactly what the Bible says will defeat 666. And there's no doubt that the forces of the Antichrist in the world right now, through the deep state, the New World Order, the Antichrist government wants war between Russia and Ukraine. And we see that hammered on us every day in the media. They want war between Russia and the Ukraine. And I would say that Dana Coverstone is prophesying that Mary is going to stop that war. 555 is going to build a truce, will cause a truce. None of them, there was no weapons in that part of the dream. And I think that is the prophecy, that the deep state is going to be defeated by 555, in this instance anyway. So I want to go through the conclusion of this really fascinating dream from Dana Trump. And this is not the first time by any means that Dana Trump's dreams have referred to Mary and the Rosary. I think the 13 dream nights indicate the book of Esther. That's where you find the number 13 in the Bible. The March calendar, to me, points to Purim, March 16th and 17th. That verifies the book of Esther. The Mount Meron disaster of a year ago points to the fulfillment of Jeremiah 23:12, and that is that the evils will come upon Israel in the year of their visitation. So I think those 3 prophecies are all tied in together. And I don't think the United States, the skies will turn gray in this country, but I don't think the United States is going to do anything to help Israel. Certainly not this administration. Now, the black skies in September points to war in the United States. That's why the jets fly up. And that's what the man in white warns us about. However, the vision which comes after the 2 dreams, or after the dream, which had 2 parts, the 2 months, indicates a truce or a resolving of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine brought about by Mary's intercession. Either February 15th, and I don't know which, or 11/15, either our time or their time. And it's interesting that the Pope is supposed to visit Moscow, I think, in February. So is he going to broker a peace? Of course, he'll take credit for it. Maybe he'll give Mary credit. We'll see. Okay, that is the end of the dream and the end of the vision. And I think it was a fascinating dream, as usual, from Dana Coverstone. I would love to hear your comments. And I know previously when I have interpreted these dreams, many times you have added a lot to it, and I miss things. Okay, let's take a quick look at the chat. I always like to see what people have to talk about, especially if you have to do with this amazing dream and vision from Dana Coverstone. Mike Harrington checks in from Gulfport, Mississippi. Adam and Nancy are here. Alyssa Moulton is here. Mary Miles, Joyce Adcock, Bob D., Karen Herrera. Tony Garcia, Sayako is here. Snowland. Wow, I'm glad you all showed up. This is great. I'm not taking attendance. You don't have to be here if you don't want to. Or you can watch later, as you know. This is Mary's School of Prophecy. I give Mary all kinds of credit. Mary's role in these end times, especially in apocalyptic literature, is extremely important. If you watch my other videos, you know her role in the end times. Well, of course, we know that from the prophecies of Fatima. Rosie WMD is here. Tina Sislow. Snowland said she has not gotten any dreams. Okay, I'm glad that he got that dream. Yes, I'm glad. I love your dreams too, Snowland. Tony's United Hearts. Rachel is here. Mayor E. Shansley. Roses for BVM. Piata Rosary. Sam is here. Sam has a live rosary himself an hour from now, so be alert for that. Says Heck that is here. Pam McPherson says Viva Cristo Rey. Carolyn says, I couldn't understand a word of it. Looking forward to hearing Mr. Tabley's interpretation. Well, I hope I got it right, Carolyn, but if someone has other suggestions, let me know. Tina Sislow is here. Indiana is here. Indy doesn't comment that often, although I've seen Indy twice at our pilgrimages. Indy says, hello, everyone. So glad to be able to be on a live broadcast. I'm usually working when William comes on. Glad he is on when I have the opportunity to join you guys. Well, we're glad you're here too, Indy. Okay, Snowland, Tina, Shansley, United Hearts, Indiana. Snowland, Indiana, Mary E. Well, so far, I haven't gotten any comments on the dream. Maybe these comments were made before I started the program. Pam says that there's winter here in Winter Haven. 50 degrees in Winter Haven. Well, I'm sure you're missing all the snow and the ice. And overcast. Oh, yeah, we had a little bit of snow today. Carolyn says, I thought it was interesting that Dana didn't have Sherry Goff interpreting this dream along with him. You know, he's been getting quite a bit of criticism if you read the comments on his dreams. And I mean, and Carolyn, I think you have stated before that Sherry Goff is in your town, and you say she's a very nice lady, but she's been getting a lot of criticism that she doesn't do a very good job of interpreting. Tina asked people not to chat while we were interpreting. Okay, that's a good idea. Alyssa Moulton says the red lights could be Russia and the yellow lights China. Oh, that's interesting. That's a good point, Alyssa. Alma says that yellow is caution, the red is warning. That's also good, Alma. Snowland says communist flags. I think the Russian flag is the Russian communist flag is red with a yellow hammer and sickle on it. I think that's also true. Okay, Deborah B. Let's see. Rosie WMD says F16 is the sixth letter. Yeah, F is A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, 6, 16. That's a good point. Alma says, eyes on the prize mean we win. Well, if we do what the man in white has been telling Dana, yes, I think we do win, but we have to brace ourselves. He's been saying that over and over. But it sounds like we're at the end, doesn't it? He says that the jet's going up. Up is the culmination of all of Dana's dreams. Alyssa says that, Marie Nolan is here. Alyssa says north, south, east, and west sounds like World War. The black sky could be a sign unexpected or at night caught off guard. Oh, that could be too, Alyssa. That's interesting. Let's see. Rita Esslinger says, where does November come from? Well, the date, he said he had the vision at 2:15 in the morning. He woke up from the dream, and the dream was finally concluded with the man in white, and he started pacing around. and he had the vision, and he said he got the vision at 2:15 in the morning. Well, as I say, symbolic interpretation takes place ahead of literal in apocalyptic prophecy. So does that 2:15, does that indicate the month? In other words, 2 would be February, and the 15 would be the day. February 15th, is that the hour and the minute, or is that the day and the month? February 15th. Now, that was Burkesville, Kentucky time. That's where he's located. The time of his vision, therefore, was 9 hours later, Ukraine time. In other words, 11:15. Would that take precedence? That would be November. 11:15 would be November 15th. And I'm not sure which it is, or it might not be either. If the symbolic interpretation is not correct, then you look at the literal interpretation. So it may just have been, I may have maybe overinterpreting it here. Snowland says, it seems every man for themselves. Amy says, could the wall be protection since it is 50 feet? Yeah, I think that's true. The two sides are being protected from each other through the wall, which Mary has built between them. Snowland says, so scapular, the wall is probably brown? I don't know. I don't think he gives the color of the wall, does he? Hazel Ann Alexander says, hi from Scotland. Sorry I'm late. Well, that's okay, Hazel Ann. We're not taking attendance. So I think you're new on here. So welcome aboard, Hazel Ann from Scotland. I have some Scotch blood in me. My mother was part Scotch. Oh, now the chat just took off. Oh, goodness, people, just be patient here. I had to go back to where I was. Oh, here we are. Okay. Roar Lion says, our time is short. Brilliant observation, Mr. Tapley. Thanks, Roar Lion. Snowland says, it reminds me of the flame of love of the Blessed Mary, the lights. Okay. Giuseppe liked the Decode. Thanks, Giuseppe. April Gardner is here. April's a long-time follower of this program. Bob D. says, starting to hear some Protestants starting to mention the Blessed Mother, but in their words. Well, the Protestant prophet, Kim Clement, received an amazing vision on the Feast of the Annunciation, although he did not understand it, about Esther. About Esther's saving America. And Esther is obviously a reference to Mary. Let's see, United Hearts says, he said Dana Trump. Did I say that? Did I say Dana Trump? I get excited, when I do these videos. JMJ says, yes, Bob, to gel with the Catholics to make a one-world religion controlled by the one-world government. Yes, there are two legs on the statue in Daniel. One leg is iron, the other is made of clay, which is actually tin. The one leg represents the leg of iron steel represents the one world government. The leg of tin or clay represents the one world religion. They will both be defeated by the remnant Catholic Church, which is the stone cut from the mountain. The mountain is the Roman Catholic Church. Alma says, we will have a victory in March. Well, things get a lot worse according to Dana's dream. But according to his dream, after March, April through August, sound like this pretty good time to have a pilgrimage. Okay, Rita. Rita says, it's not like we're praying. Why can't we comment or ask questions during the discussion? Oh, I think that was probably all right. Tina says that she wanted people to concentrate on the interpretation. So, JMJ says, Our Lady in the back shines in the light. Oh, good. Yeah, I think so. I think I did put the light over there. Bob D. JMJ says that Putin takes the balcony Ukraine from the deep state? I'm not sure what you're saying there, J&J. Alyssa Moulton says, maybe the consecration of Russia will happen, predicted by Our Lady at Fatima. That could be. Wouldn't that be something? That would be great. Bucking Chat says, wonderful analysis, rather dramatic. Well, I think it's a dramatic dream. And I think you're new on here, aren't you, Bucking Chat? So welcome aboard. Alma says, we have to pray about March and September. Yes, well, there's no doubt about that. We have to pray to protect ourselves because these governments, they want to destroy each other. Roses for BVM says, somewhat of a hopeful prophecy. Well, I felt that way myself when I read it. Let's keep rolling those battle beads. Mary Corrigan says, Pope Francis' trip to Moscow is for him to set up a one-world religion. You know, that's what I've always been saying. That's what I've been saying. I have been saying that Pope Francis is going to Moscow to get the terms of surrender so that Moscow can put the communist flag over the Vatican, as prophesied many times. Diane Thornton is here. Alyssa Moulton. Tina Sissel. Carolyn Couch says, I think our prayers are working. Well, thanks for that, Carolyn. You may be right. It sure can't hurt. Let's see. Deborah Snowland. Tony Garcia says, so would it happen in the first part of 2022? Well, as I say, the March and September is pretty clear. Those dates have been pretty clear. The question is, when does the vision occur? There's no date given for the vision. The only thing given for the vision was the time that he received it, 2:15. Does that indicate a date? That's the question I'm not sure about. Oh, dear, the chat just took up here it is. JMJ says it's a rumor of war. To the Revolution says the Russians have hypersonic missiles. I don't think the U.S. has anything to stop those. The F-16 is a lot slower. No, you're right. To the Revolution. Mary said at Fatima that Russia is going to spread her errors throughout the world. And Snowland says, I believe the jet's going up is to pay attention to the comet. Oh, that's interesting. That could be Snowland. And that would indicate that the black outside the window would refer to the 3 days of darkness. And that occurred to me, and then I didn't write it down, so I forgot about it. But that, of course, comes at the very end, the 3 days of darkness. And since there's no months listed on his calendar after that, and that could be what the darkness indicates, and that would, the comet, the jets going up could refer to the comet. Okay, let's see. Miracle, Alma Madrano. Alma says it's dark, meaning we will not know what's going on. That's also very interesting. Mary Corrigan says the Servants of Christ YouTube channel, Pope Francis' trip to Russia will mark the start of the Great Tribulation. Prophecy of Garabandel. Oh, okay. Rita says 11 is an imperfect number in the Bible, isn't it? 11 is also an Illuminati number. Yes, it is. And that's why 9/11. That's why they staged the 9/11 on that date. 9 plus 1 plus 1 is 11. And, of course, 11 is 11. And that's when did Pope Benedict resign? He resigned on February 11th. Sam says, thank you for the decode. Well, you're very welcome, Sam. Sam will be on in about 3/4 of an hour with a live stream rosary on his channel. Karen says, this Ukraine platform is like a big flat cement block for the world to watch, a big stepping stone to what comes next. Then a pause. Cyber for the world to have something to talk about. I think the cyber is a little more serious than that, the cyber reference. Carolyn says, I think there has to be a time where the Catholic Church is restored, and that is when the Protestants join us. Yes, but there's also a schism. The Catholic Church splits wide open, and some Protestants are going to join the one world religion, and some Protestants are going to join the Roman Catholic Church. Mary Corrigan says, according to Mystic Post TV, the warning is coming very soon. Russia prophecy to unfold. The Pope to go to Russia. I check out their videos just about every day. Well, let me see. I don't want to go too much longer. I don't like to go over an hour, and the program is right now officially at an hour. Let's see. I think I'm going to let everybody read everybody else's comments because we're already at the hour time. Carolyn says the deep state is retreating. Well, that's why they're liable to start a war. What have they got left? Donald Trump's starting up his social media platform. Well, that's the end of Twitter and Facebook. And the midterms come in November. They're getting desperate. What are they going to do? Typically, tyrannies have started wars when things get bad. So, all right. Snowland says maybe what was that? I don't know. Snowland says maybe going up refers to the rapture. Okay, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a possibility too. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching, and I'm going to close off the program. Don't forget, Sam Fisher will do a live stream rosary at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. He's not on this YouTube any longer. That's because he likes to have freedom of speech, so he gives his rosary over on D-Live. And I will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And same station. And until I do see all of you then, may God bless all of you. And may all of you have a very blessed evening.